A connection isn't a wire. A wire is just 2 points agreeing to talk. 40 years I've serviced the trunk lines, and I've seen everything. Breaks, flooded ducts, lightning. One thing I'd never seen. A pair engaged for 50 years without a single disconnect. It exists. The attenuation.
Report number 37. A city telephone exchange, commissioned 1964. 6 floors of switching, 1 preserved hall. The old operator room. Cord boards, brass jacks, the chairs the telephonists left in 1987. The equipment is depowered. Every night at 1:24, 1 jack on the board lights up with an incoming call. This is the night duty officer's statement.
They kept the old hall as a museum. That's the official word. But you don't leave chairs in a museum. You don't keep a logbook in a museum. And you certainly don't inherit from the woman who trained you the habit of glancing at position 740 every time you walk past the glass. Museums are for things that ended. Nobody ever told me that hall ended.
The lamp is the impossible part, and she wants it stated plainly. The cord board was disconnected from power when the hall closed. She has seen the cut bus bars painted over behind the panel. The lamp of Jack 740 lights anyway at 1:24 with the small warm patience of an incoming call that knows it will be answered. The answering is the inherited part. In the supervisor's desk lives the shift transfer notebook, the telephonist's own institution, 60 years of handwriting, and threaded through it, generation by generation, one standing instruction that no regulation ever contained. Position 740, connect without conversation. Our talking disturbs the subscribers. Variations of it recur in a dozen hands across the decades, refined, passed down, until the final entry, written the week the hall closed in 1987 by the last telephonist of the old floor, in a script that presses hard at the end of the lines. Whoever remains, keep connecting them. They don't have much longer. They've been saying so themselves since '71. The duty officer read that entry her first winter on nights. She has kept the connection ever since, a plug, a socket, 10 seconds of an obsolete craft, and entered her own name in the notebook, next line down from 1987. The etiquette of the old floor forbids listening, and she keeps it. But a cord board is an honest machine, and in the half-second between seating the plug and the circuit closing into privacy, sound leaks. Fragments, over the years, assembled into certainty. 2 voices, a man and a woman, not talking the way people talk, talking the way people continue. Every night, mid-sentence, mid-thought, the conversational grammar of 2 people for whom hanging up stopped being one of the options a very long time ago. The tone is what she asks the record to preserve, because the tone is the finding, not urgency, not greed. Domesticity. The steady, warm, slightly argumentative hum of a marriage comparing notes. Once, the night she'd fought the plug into a stiff socket and the circuit closed late, she caught a whole sentence, the man's voice, dry and pleased, clearly finishing a point he had been making for some years. Well, there you are, connected. I told you, this exchange doesn't abandon its people. She sat with her hand on the cold brass for a long moment. She says, feeling her word, and she stands by it, referenced.
50 years and people always ask the same thing. What did I talk about? I've heard maybe 30 seconds total in fragments, and I'll tell you what I know. They're not talking. They're not saying goodbye. Those are different genres. Any telephonist can tell them apart by the rhythm. A conversation has pauses. Theirs doesn't. You don't leave pauses when you know what's waiting in them.
The night the rhythm broke, the lamp lit differently. She noticed before she could have articulated it. Short, repeating flashes, the old code for a distressed line that she knew from the training manuals of a floor she never worked. She seated the plug. And the half-second of leak did not close into privacy because there was no second voice to close around. The woman's voice stood alone in the channel, calling into it. Kolya? Kolya, are you there? With the specific rising evenness of a person who has not been alone in 50 years and is discovering in real time what it sounds like. The duty officer did the thing no instruction covered and every telephonist who ever lived would recognize. She stayed in the circuit. And she lied. The professional lie, the switchboard lie, the one that holds callers together through failures they must not be allowed to understand. "He's on the line," she said, in the flat, certain voice of the trade. "The connection is poor tonight. Don't hang up, we're repairing it. Stay with me." And for 40 minutes, she watched them pass on the hall's dead clock, which has also never been told it stopped. She held the channel with her voice. The weather, the age of the switchboard, the names of telephonists in the notebook. Anything, while somewhere below the city, this file can now attest. A cableman with an unauthorized regenerator was doing the actual repairing, neither of them knowing the other existed. At 1:09, the channel filled again. The man's voice, further away than before but present, said, "Forgive me. It was dark where I was." And the woman's voice, instantly, furiously, gratefully, "Then you hold my hand through the wire. Do you hear me?" And the circuit closed into privacy, and the duty officer sat back and shook and finished her shift.
40 minutes I held that channel with nothing but my voice and the manners of a trade that officially doesn't exist anymore. And when it was over, I understood my actual job title. I'm not the night duty officer. I'm what they have instead of a dial tone. When the line fails, something has to be on it that sounds like the exchange still cares. That's the position I hold. It's the best position on this node, and it isn't in any staffing table.
The notebook answered her 3 days later. Beneath her own entry, beneath the line where she had logged the failure, and the 40 minutes in the dry format the old floor would have wanted, stood a new paragraph. Not her hand. The hand of 1987, unmistakable, the same press at the ends of lines, continuing after 39 years as if the pen had merely been set down. "Well done, girl. That's how we always did it. Write yourself into the hall's staff list. You've earned the right." The staff list, the final page of the notebook, holds the names of every telephonist of the old floor, closed with a ruled line in 1987. She wrote her name beneath the rule. The ink, she notes, took to the page like the page had been waiting. The exhibit. The manufacturer's schematic of the cord board, 1964, preserved in the equipment passport. Every jack designated by position number in the factory's neat drafting hand. Every jack but one. Position 740 carries, instead of a number, a word, entered at the factory, in the drafting hand per, the title block notes, client specification, permanent. The board was built with the call already in it. This file observes the way a certain departures board was built with an arrival, the way a certain oxygen line was sized for 12 bed. The specification, in the tradition this archive has stopped being surprised by, does not survive. The lamp of 740 lit last night at 1:24. It was answered. The report remains open, unresolved, a quiet one. Before the next report, a fragment. Fragment 17. A per-minute billing slip surfaced during the digitization of the subscriber archive. One call. Tariff class. Long distance. Family rate. Duration. Printed by the billing machine in the unexcitable type of 1990s accounting hardware. 31 years. 4 months. 11 days. Connection active. The amount due field holds a dash. Beneath it, in the hand of a bookkeeper who has since retired and declined, politely, to be interviewed, a note this archive quotes in full. Billing suspended until the conversation concludes. Rounds. Directive number 1. The slip was carried through 3 currency reforms and 2 changes of billing software. The duration counter the current system confirms is still incrementing. The family rate, the tariff office adds, has never been revoked, because the tariff office has never been able to establish which family member would sign the revocation. This fragment remains unprocessed. This fragment remains unprocessed. Report number 38, and the voice that opened this file. The trunk cableman, 40 years in the ducts and crossframes of the exchange, keeper of 10,000 copper pairs. His statement concerns pair 214, vacant, per the cable passport, since 1968. His instruments disagree. His instruments say pair 214 has been carrying one call, without interruption, for over 50 years.
Make sure they can still hear each other. That's where you came in. A line test doesn't do opinions. Voltage, resistance, attenuation, 3 numbers, and the pair is either free or it's working. 214 works. Voice band carrier, both directions, day and night. Every test I've ever run, and every test in the folder before me. 50 years of a pair the paperwork calls empty, doing the steadiest work on the node.
The measurement archive is the trade's memory. Every trunk pair tested on schedule, the figures entered on cards, the cards binder-ed by decade. Pair 214 has a binder of its own. Someone before him started it. Someone before that thickened it. The story the figures tell is slow and read all at once, unlike anything in the manuals. The signal is healthy. The signal has always been healthy. But the attenuation, the natural loss of a line, the deafness of distance, climbs. A decibel every few years, steady as sediment across half a century. The electrical signature, if a man lets himself read it plainly, of 2 endpoints moving apart. Not the cable stretching, cables don't. The distance itself, growing, on a pair whose physical length has not changed since 1968. And on every measurement card, beside the climbing figure, in the successive hands of every cableman who ever held this district, the same unauthorized annotation, never ordered, never explained, never once omitted. Raised the gain. Raised the gain. 6 men before him, every one of them on his own initiative, quietly turned the amplifiers up so that whatever was drifting apart on pair 214 could keep hearing itself across the widening dark. He took up the inheritance without ceremony, checked the amplifier rack, added his half decibel, entered his card, wrote the 4 words. Then, because 40 years makes a man read archives the way other men read novels, he noticed the second pattern, and this one he has shown to no one at the note. The attenuation does not climb smoothly. It climbs in steps, small lurches, months apart, sometimes years, and the steps have dates. He matched them against the exchange's own history, the way the weighbridge operator of another file matched waybills against a city. The closure of the old operator hall, 1987. A step. The death of the senior lineman who had kept this district for 30 years. A step that same winter. The decommissioning of the last electromechanical rack. The retirement of the longest-serving directory operator. Steps, each one, within weeks. The line he concluded, standing in the cross-frame room with 50 years of cards spread on the shelf, does not weaken on its own schedule. It weakens when the exchange weakens. Whatever pair 214 carries, it is held up not by copper, but by the node itself, by the people, the halls, the working faith of the place. Every loss the station takes, the 2 voices pay for in distance.
Once I saw that pattern, my job changed shape. I'm not maintaining a line. I'm maintaining the thing that holds the line up, and the thing that holds it up is us. The node. Every man who retires untrained for, every hall they close for savings. That's a decibel. Somewhere down pair 214. You want to know what attenuation is? It's forgetting. Measured in dBb.
The night it nearly failed, his phone woke him at home. The monitoring alert he had wired himself, against regulations, from the rack of pair 214. The attenuation had not stepped. It had dropped through the floor. The figure sat at the edge of intelligibility, the level at which a voice becomes weather, at which, the phrase from his statement, a person on the far end stands in the dark. He drove to the node at 1 in the morning, badge and toolbox, no work order, and did the thing he had been quietly preparing for 2 years, since the pattern first frightened him. From the store of decommissioned equipment, he took the regenerator he had rebuilt on his own bench, tested, burned in, waiting, and cut it into pair 214, live, barehanded, at 1:30, in violation of every norm his trade has printed. The figure climbed, steadied, settled at a level the pair had not seen since the 1980s cards. He sat on the cross-frame stool until 4, watching a needle hold still, and went home. When he returned for the day shift, the terminals of pair 214 carried a tag. Paper stock the node retired decades ago, wired on with a lineman's knot, his own trade's knot, tied by a hand that knew it. The tag read, "Thank you. We can hear like before." She laughed. He kept the tag. It lives in the measurement binder now, in a sleeve, the only exhibit in 50 years of cards. And it was in the binder, a week later, that he turned it over. On the reverse, smaller, in the same hand but written, he judges later and less steadily, the way a person adds the question they almost managed not to ask. Will there be no more dark? He is a cableman. 40 years, and he has never once written a note to a line. He didn't start. Instead, over 3 off-shift nights, he built and installed the answer. A second regenerator, full redundancy, automatic failover, wired in parallel and powered from 2 independent buses, so that no single failure, no dead rack, no drunk excavator, 2 districts over can ever again put the far end of pair 214 in the dark. He tested the failover twice. Then he tagged his own installation, in the format his trade uses for protected equipment, with the only sentence of his career that he admits composing carefully. The tag on the reserve line reads, "No, not on this shift."
Attenuation is distance. That's just physics. So do the physics with me. Where can 2 people be drifting for 50 years and still need a copper pair between them? They're far apart now. Very far. And I'll tell you what I think, and you can file it. I think one of them is further than the other. I think one of them is somewhere with a dawn, and one of them isn't yet. And the wire is what they have instead of the distance. We're what they have instead of the distance. Find out. Then the game stays up.
The exhibit. The Trunk Cable Passport, 1968 revision. The year pair 214 officially became vacant. Dotty. In the Reserved Assets Appendix, 1 line, Founding Era Typescript. Pair 214. Inviolable reserve. Faults to be corrected out of sequence, without work orders, without report. Grounds. Agreement number 1, line clause. Without work orders, this file repeats. A standing, 50-year-old, written dispensation for exactly the kind of unauthorized night repair a cableman performed at 1:30 with his own 2 hands. He was never breaking the rules, the passport reveals. He was following an instruction he had never read, the way everyone in this archive follows them. By trade, by inheritance, by the quiet contagion of the right thing. The report remains open, unresolved. A quiet one. 2 reports remain. You have heard the line, and you have met the hands that hold it up. What follows is the service around the call, the directory that remembers every number the city has forgotten, and the bill that has never once been sent. Report number 39. Filed by the operator of Directory Service 09, the archival desk kept alive on paper for legal inquiries after the electronic base replaced it. Her books hold every number the city has ever issued, back to the first exchange. Numbers of flats long resettled, of houses long demolished. Her statement concerns the callers who ask for them. At night. Politely. In pairs.
Directory work is the humblest trade on the node. People only call you when they've lost something. A number, usually. Sometimes more. The day calls want plumbers and clinics. The night calls are different. The night calls are quiet voices asking for numbers that haven't rung in 40 years. And here's the thing about my books. In my books, those numbers are still good.
The desk survives on an instruction nobody thought to rescind. Archival numbers are issued on request, without establishing identity. Refusal is not permitted. 1964 typescript. Founding era grounds. This file will produce in due course. For decades, the instruction looked like bureaucratic dead weight. On nights, it turns out to be the whole job. The calls come after 1, never many, 2 or 3 a week, and they follow a form as fixed as liturgy. A voice, quiet, courteous, slightly formal in the way of people who learned their telephone manners in another era, asks for a number by address. Such and such street, such and such house, flat so and so. The street, as often as not, has been renamed. The house, as often as not, is a parking lot, a shopping center, a gapped RE. The electronic base returns nothing, because the electronic base was born in the 90s and remembers accordingly. The paper books remember everything. She finds the number, the books are indexed by an order only her desk still understands, and reads it out, digit by digit, in the directory cadence. The voice thanks her, always, with the same slight bow you can hear through a wire, and hangs up. Where those numbers ring, her statement does not speculate. That they are needed, she no longer doubts. The pattern took her 2 winters to see because it lives across calls, not inside them. The requests come in pairs. A voice, call it the first, asks for a number at one address. A night or 3 later, a different voice asks for a different number, a different street. Unconnected, until she began, against no instruction at all, keeping a private log, date, address, number issued, and cross-checking the pairs against her own books, which hold not only numbers, but the old subscriber registries, the who lived where of a century. The pairs connect. Every time. A husband and wife, divorced in the 70s, 2 flats across the city from each other. A brother and sister resettled to different districts when their street came down. A mother's flat, a son's first apartment, 4 tram stops away. 2 halves of something interrupted, asking, separately, on separate nights, for each other's numbers. Someone, she understood, sitting over her log at 3 in the morning is reconnecting this city. Pair by pair. Patiently, from both ends, at once. And the archival desk? The dead weight? The legal formality? The last place on Earth where a demolished house still has a working number? Is the switchboard they do it through.
Both ends, separately. That's what gets me. Nobody's haunting anybody. He asks for hers, she asks for his, like 2 shy people getting a mutual friend to pass a note. And I'm the mutual friend. 40 years on this desk, and my actual job description turned out to be the woman who reintroduces people the city pulled apart. There are worse careers. I can't think of one better.
The escalation came in daylight, which is how she knew it mattered. The night traffic never crosses into day. A living voice, elderly, careful, embarrassed the way people are when they've decided to do the irrational thing properly. I dreamed of my father last night, he said. Call 09, ask for our old number. The pre-war one, from the house on the embankment. He said, they'll find it. Tell her the desk keeps everything. The operator, who had been told by a dream, secondhand, that her desk keeps everything, went to the oldest book on the shelf. The 1940s register, spine gone, pages the color of weak tea, and found it. The house, the family name, the number. 4 digits, from when the whole city fit in 4 digits. She read it out, in the directory cadence, digit by digit. And then, because the instruction says refusal is not permitted and says nothing at all about restraint, she added the rest of what the dream had apparently arranged for her to say. Dial it from a landline. Let it ring 7 times. And call me back, the desk would like to know. The woman called back that evening. Her voice had been rebuilt from the ground up. 7 rings, she said. Then quiet, not dead quiet, room quiet. And then he said, finally, daughter. I've been holding this number since 48. The desk's mail slot has not received correspondence in years. The desk is not listed anywhere mail comes from. A week after the daughter's call, it received 1 envelope. No stamp. No postmark. Address, Directory 09, the old floor, a floor designation retired before the operator was hired. Inside 1 page, a formal hand of the old school, gratitude measured and complete, for the desk's assistance in a family matter, signed, subscriber of 48. And beneath the signature, a postscript that the operator has since had framed, because it is, she submits, the finest quality control report in the history of the node, one small matter. Your 1952 register carries a misprint in our number. The final digit, a 5 set for a 6. Kindly correct it, in case anyone else should ask. She pulled the 52 book. The misprint is there, has been there for 70 years, a compositor's slip, 5 for 6. She corrected it in archival pencil, initialed, dated. The dead, this file submits, proofread the directorate. Not for themselves, they know their numbers. For whoever else might ask.
I used to think we kept the archive for the lawyers. Then I thought we kept it for memory. Now I know what this desk actually is. A number stays alive exactly as long as somebody can still ask for it. That's the whole physics of my trade. We're not a directory. We're the memorial book that answers. And as of last month, we're a memorial book with corrected proofs. You tell me who else in this city gets their errata from the original subscribers.
The exhibit. The directory instruction of 1964, in force through every reorganization the desk has survived. Archival numbers are to be issued on request, without establishing the identity of the requester. Refusal is not permitted. Grounds. Agreement number 1, Directory Clause. Without establishing identity, this file repeats a founding-era dispensation drafted, it would appear, by someone who understood precisely which requesters would be unable to establish theirs and decided 60 years in advance that they would be served anyway. The instruction has been followed by 4 generations of operators, none of whom read it, all of whom kept it. The corrected register stands on the shelf. The desk, as of this filing, remains open nights. The report remains open. Unresolved. Quiet one. One more fragment before the final report. Fragment 18. A telegram delivery log. One telegram, accepted for transmission in 1985, was delivered this year. The log entry citing, in the delivery service's own format, address of recipient clarified. The telegram's text is preserved on the delivery copy, in the compressed grammar of the form. Arrived well, stop, don't worry, stop. We'll meet you when you're ready, stop, not before stop. The recipient signed for it. The recipient is 94. The signature in the log, the delivery clerk noted without being asked, is firm. The clerk was asked whether the recipient said anything on receipt. The statement is preserved. She read it twice, folded it, and said, 40 years. He always did take his time writing. This fragment remains unprocessed. This fragment remains unprocessed. The final report. Filed by the head of the exchange, the man who signs for the node entire. Taking over the post, he found in the budget a line that predates every ledger system the node has used. Special channel number 1, public communications, paid without interruption since 1964, through every reform, every currency, every ownership. The channel exists. It has been carried, tenderly, across 60 years of dying technologies. This is his statement.
Every institution has a budget line nobody questions. Ours pays for one channel. I asked the accountant what it was. My first month. She said, it's the line we don't touch. I asked who ordered that. She said, nobody, dear. Ordering would imply somebody ever considered the alternative.
The channel's biography is the node's biography, told from underneath. Commissioned 1964, on the first electromechanical racks. Migrated in 1979 when the racks were replaced. Migrated again in 94 to the first digital switch. Again in 2009. Again in 2021 onto equipment whose manufacturer does not know the channel exists. Each migration is documented. He pulled every act. And each was performed under the same standing regulation. A document engineers have executed for 60 years and evidently never read past the title. The technical pages are ordinary, routing, levels, test procedure. The final page is not technical. The channel is to be migrated with care. The connection is not to be interrupted during transfer. Verification upon completion. Ask, can you hear each other, and await the reply. He checked the completion acts. 1979. Verification performed. Reply received. 94. Reply received. 2009, 2021. Reply received. 4 generations of engineers, he submits, have asked a question into a channel they did not understand, and 4 generations have written down, in the steadiest hand the forms allow, that the channel answered.
Reply received. 2 words on 4 acts across half a century, and I know these engineers, dead serious men. Men who write not confirmed if a lamp blinks wrong. Every one of them asked. Every one of them waited. Every one of them heard something worth signing their name under. That's the part I sat with. Not the channel. The signatures.
Then came the final digitization, the decommissioning of the last analog floor, the one migration the channel could not survive by its old methods. This time, there would be no analog anywhere to migrate to. The planning meeting is minuted, and the minutes are an exhibit. The young contractor, competent, unsentimental, priced by the hour, reviewed the channel's file and proposed the obvious: don't migrate it. It's an untraceable legacy circuit with no registered subscriber. Decommission with the floor. Who would ever notice? And the head of the exchange, who had been waiting, he admits, for someone to say it out loud, opened the safe and produced the envelope. The one pinned to the channel's founding application since 1964. Carried forward through every archive migration. Marked in the first director's hand. To be opened if preservation becomes impossible. He opened it at the table. 1 sheet. If it has come to this, transfer the channel to any working technology at the node's own expense. They are almost done talking. Do not cut off mid-word a conversation the length of a life. We promised. The signature, 1964. The room, the minutes record, was silent for some time. The channel was migrated to a dedicated digital circuit at the node's expense, under an order the head of the exchange drafted himself and signed. He wants the record to state, having read it. The first document in this archive's history, he believes, that a director signed with his eyes open. It changed nothing about the signing. It changed everything about the man. The contractor stayed after the meeting. The minutes do not cover what the head of the exchange reports next, so his statement stands alone. The young man asked to see the envelope again, read the sheet twice, and then asked, in the voice, the head recalls, of a man renegotiating with himself, to perform the migration person. Off the clock. No charge to the node. The work took him 3 nights. The verification act, in his hand, reads, asked. Reply received, both voices. Clear. Dull. Clear. He requested one thing in payment. A photocopy of the letter. He has it. The head of the exchange happens to know, framed in his office. On the wall above the desk where he prices contracts. Directly over the signature line.
Every agreement in this city, as far as I can tell, was signed unread. That's how they survive. Mine is the first one I read before signing. And I'll tell you the honest thing, reading is worse. Because now I know what I promised. Not a budget line. Not a channel. 2 people, almost done talking, who were told 60 years ago that this node would carry them to the end of the sentence. I'm the 5th man to hold that promise. There will not need to be many more. You can hear it in the acts if you read them in order. They are almost done.
The last exhibit, and the file closes. The founding application itself, connection request, 1964, the first document in the channel's folder, and by its registry stamp, among the first in the nodes. 2 subscribers. The names are sealed by the archive, and this file, for once, did not press. The term of service field in the first director's typescript, until the conversation concludes. And the field for grounds of connection, the box the form reserves for business justification, filled in by hand by the first director, in the only sentence this archive would put on the node's front door, if archives did such things, separated by circumstances of insurmountable force. The circumstances are recognized by the exchange as valid. 4 reports, 1 node. A lamp that lights on a dead board. A copper pair held up by the faith of a building. A directory that answers the only callers who cannot prove their names. And a promise, 60 years old, renewed this spring at the node's own expense, with its eyes open. The books, as always in this archive, balance, and this once, the balance is owed in the other direction. It is the node that pays, gladly, and has never sent the bill. All 4 reports remain open, unresolved. And quiet ones, the whole file, quiet ones. Good night from the quiet report. Stay on the line.